There's such a thing as the law of communication. Now, if anyone ever wants to communicate with someone else, they've got to follow the law of communication. There's 5 parts to it. And if these 5 parts are not followed, if these 5 parts don't happen, if any one of them is left out, then you don't have communication. You've got some confusion, you got maybe manipulation, you got just noise, but you don't have communication. So what are the 5 parts? Well, first you've got the sender. The sender obviously is the one who wants to send a message. And so they'll pick somebody that they want to speak to, and they'll also get to decide the medium. Now the medium is how are they going to send that message? It may be through just audio, it could be through body language, it could be through written text, it could be all sorts of things. But there's got to be a medium in which that message travels. And that recipient, the receiver, has got to receive that message. They actually have to receive the message. Now, if a sender sends a message in good faith and they send it through a great medium, but it just bounces right off of the receiver's forehead and they don't even get it, then communication didn't happen. All right, you missed out on the receiver, well, then you don't have communication. All right, now, if the sender has a message they want to send, and they're like, you know what? I'm just going to think the message, right? I'm just going to hope and pray that, and I picked my receiver. I know who I want to send the message to, but I'm just going to think about it. And I bet that the other person will get it, right? But that means there's no medium, right? There's no message actually being traveled and passed across. And so communication doesn't happen. But let's say the sender sends through a good medium and the receiver gets it. Okay, they receive the message, right? And then they process and they figure it out and they say, you know what? Here it is. I think that the sender is saying this right here. But how does the sender know if they got it or not? The receiver's got to give feedback, right? And at this point, the receiver kind of becomes the sender at the same time because they've got to send a message back to the sender. But they're still the receiver. But they'll send that feedback, and really they could change the medium. All right, if they got a message through text only, maybe they could just pick up the phone and call the sender and say, "Hey, I saw your text, and this is what I think." At that point, the sender could say, "Hey, you got it right or you got it wrong." Now the final part, well, that's it right there. The sender could tell them, "Hey, you got it right or you got it wrong." There's confirmation. That's the last part. If you don't have any one of those parts, then you don't have communication. And the reason why it's important to understand law of communication and to apply it to our lives and to apply it to our thinking is because, well, like in the resurrection roadmap, we realize that we're lost with our own identity. We can never know our own identity unless the Creator reveals it to us. Well, the Creator's got to send a message to us. And we got to know who to be looking out for. So we have our resurrection test. We got our litmus test to understand and be able to know with certainty who the Creator actually is, to identify the Creator in that sense, to be able to point at the Creator. And the Creator, if they're going to reveal themselves, if they're going to communicate to us, they got to do it as a person. Okay? Because we communicate as people. We communicate with other people. We don't communicate with physical things. We don't communicate with animals. Not on the real communication level anyway. I mean, yeah, we train animals, we can tame animals, things like that, but we don't really communicate with animals in the sense of like, tell me my identity kind of communication. Now we need a person that speaks our language and knows us and we know them and we can actually talk to in order to have our identity revealed to us and have the identity of the Creator revealed to us. It's got to be a person. So that person has to follow the laws of communication. Now the next part, this is where we can hone in on something really special. Okay. Because we not only can we look at the resurrection roadmap and we can say, hey, you know what? I need a litmus test and I need a way to identify the Creator. we can use that litmus test to know if we're talking to the Creator or not. And we can also use the law of communication to know if the Creator has actually revealed himself or not. I mean, it's one thing to say, hey, here's a person who resurrected from the dead, but it's a different thing to say, did they communicate with us? And yeah, Jesus did communicate with us. But I'm not going to get into that in this video. This video, I really just want to tailor toward just breaking down those 5 parts and really understand the 5 parts and kind of how important they are. It's the kind of thing that people don't even really think about. It's the kind of thing that is kind of just seems to be understood, but it's also like the levels are separate for a reason. It's one of these lessons that it's important to really distinguish how critical it is to know if the law of communication has been followed or not. Because like I said, if you miss even one point, like the confirmation, for instance, then you don't have communication. If you miss out on the receiver giving their feedback, if the receiver never gives their feedback, you don't have communication. And we're going to get into that, how the law of communication was abided by, how the Creator abided by the law of communication, how Jesus abided by the law of communication when he revealed himself to us, and how Scripture abides by the laws of communication when the Lord reveals himself to us through Scripture. And we're going to look at how just the existence of Scripture itself is actually the feedback back to the Creator. And we'll look at how the Scriptures surviving what they've survived is confirmation from the Creator that what is written there is correct. But all of that in a different video. Stay tuned for that. And again, like all of the other videos I put out, if this is something that, a topic that is, something you want to discuss, then by all means, let's post about it, ask questions, and let's be active in this, because what's at stake here is our relationships. Okay, we want to grow and nurture our relationships, not just with ourselves in this community, but we want to take what we learn and how we communicate here, and we want to replicate that in our other relationships that are not online, that are in real life and with our families and friends. And we want to replicate, how do we nurture these relationships and how do we grow with each other?